The World Bank has projected that Nigeria's economy will grow at 3.3% this year. That's 0.4% higher than the 2.9% projected in 2023. In its global economic prospect, the World Bank expects the country to firm further to 3.7% in 2024 over the global output growth. This projection is above the estimated global average of 2.3% and June forecast, which are 3%, 3.1% respectively. Well, interestingly, let's discuss this more, and I'm being joined live from Abuja by the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Dignity Finance and Investment Limited, Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu. Compliments of the season. Thank you for joining us on the program. Doc, it's good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tolu. Happy New Year.
Yes, we are at it again in 2024, as we've always done. And we've gotten this report now from the World Bank saying there is a review, there is a tweak. Nigeria's economy would grow at 3.3%. Considering the challenges we faced before now, pre-pandemic levels, they are looking that even by 2025, we would recover to pre-pandemic levels and per capita income will be at par with what is expected. What do you make of this report? What considering what we have on ground, Dr. Ikechukwu?
Yes, it's achievable. Having to achieve economic growth is achievable, actually. This is so because once we have enough political will to achieve this, we can do that. And considering some of the decisions taken by government in this new era, you will see that some of these can still be achieved. One of the things that was burning down our revenue base at the time was the issue that we needed to pay for fuel subsidy. That is no more, and so we're not paying that anymore. Even if anything like that is still going on, maybe not at the magnitude it was going on before. So we also have seen a lot of decisions taken. Of course, government has said there has to be enough food and food pricing has to come down as much as possible. And because of that, that responsibility has been given to the National Security Council to be able to handle and to deal with. So these are all the efforts made by government. And of course, you just mentioned the aspect of controlling crude oil theft. Measures are in place to reduce crude oil theft and to ensure that we produce oil even up to our OPEC quota given to us. If we're able to achieve that and probably get up to the point of reaching our installed capacity, then that means these things are possible. We're seeing the fact that our economic growth has been driven by agricultural, construction, services, and the like. And you see that these areas are doing well without the input of government. So we're seeing a lot of development and growth in the ICT area. A lot of things are going on in social media. I'm even thinking that the kind of money is being generated in the social media area have still not been calculated, because if they're calculated, we may be doing this even right now, achieving up to 3.3 even right now before we start talking about the full year. So this is achievable.
What a good start. But many will say Nigeria has some specific challenges, and that is what we want to really look at, and saying that has hit inflation, interest rates by the MPC, trying to rein in inflation, but inflation still stays on the high side. Now, this same report says inflation is likely to decrease from 2024. Looking at the price of PMS, aviation fuel, and other things, how soon do you say this come into fruition?
Yeah, first of all, we need to look at the major drivers of inflation. One of it is the exchange rates that we have today. Now, the question is, will the exchange rate continue to be as high as it is today? The answer is no, if all the things we need to do, we do them. And the second thing that is the driver of exchange rate is the price of petroleum product. And you know that when we talk about these prices, we're also talking about the fact that we can produce our own oil. And if we produce our own oil, if we refine our own oil, there are also byproducts of refined area to ensure that when we reduce the exchange rate, if exchange rate goes down, it is likely that inflation rates will also go down. Once we start refining our own oil and bringing more people into that particular sector, there will be competition, and this competition will lead to price reduction. In this case, there will also be a major thing that causes high inflation going out of the way. One other thing that we have to work on to help reduce the inflation is to work on insecurity of the country. Once we work on that, farmers can go to farms and get all the agricultural produce in order for us to have better prices in the market. So these are things that are achievable and we can achieve.
But these sectors that we said is identified for drivers of growth, agriculture, construction services, trade, and all of that, what more can be done, or what policies can be instituted to improve their contribution to growth?
First of all, construction is taking place, and we're seeing a lot of them happening. Construction, we're not just talking about the roads, we're talking about the kind of houses that are springing up all over the place, especially major cities of Abuja and Lagos and Port Harcourt. These houses you can see. And so how are these people being funded? Some of these fundings are coming from outside the country. Some of them are coming from the mortgage banks that exist. Some of them are savings that are happening. So we can give it to it that construction has enough traction to grow the economy. In agric, we need to also do more, because what we need to do in agric is just to ensure that the roads that lead to these agricultural areas are constructed, and so that people can bring out their goods out of the agricultural areas. And then for some of the perishable goods, we need to build silos and ways of preserving these things so that at no time will there be scarce within the year. When we do this, like I said before, we also have to work on insecurity so that more farmers can enter the farmland. For trading, trading is such that once money is made available for traders buying and selling, exporting and importing, once people can have access to funds, cheap funds, of course, that particular sector is going to grow. So what we really need is just an avenue for stimulating the entire market, entire sectors, and which is just to make sure that monies are available for borrowing and for lending in order for these sectors to pick up. And of course, we need to also look at some other sectors like the mining sector, which has actually not contributed much to the growth of the country, to the GDP of the country. We need to take mining very seriously. Taking it seriously meaning government needs to take it more seriously, and so that we eliminate the functions of all these illegal miners all over the place, so that we can generate some revenue from there, and some other sectors that we can actually harness.
So a lot of work needs to be done there. Now, we've seen reforms, and reforms keep coming up, but let's talk about something that impacts the masses, which I think you should be interested in, is the social investment program. We hear of all of this abroad and properly implemented, where people are paid stipends, people are supported in their business dealings and all of that. But we see what is happening here in Nigeria after the establishment of that ministry and all of that. How can we properly manage monies like this that are meant to get to the vulnerable ones? How can we make sure that at the end of the day, it gets to where it should get to? That's the most important thing for impact.
For these developed countries you mentioned, they have enough data of everybody. Social security, everybody has a social security number. And they can say accurately how many citizens that they have, how many people that are supposed to benefit from this. They also have information about the occupation and the employment status of everybody. We don't have such data here. We don't have such information here. So since we don't have such information, when you want to give money to certain categories of people, many people will claim to be in that category in order for them to have these monies. And then the second thing that affects us is corruption, not being accountable. If we're accountable, these monies will get to where they're supposed to get to, but we're not accountable in most cases, and nothing happens to some of these people when they're not accountable for monies they claim to have distributed. But having said this, having this kind of economy and this kind of information that we don't have, what we need to do is just to move those monies instead of just crediting people's accounts that we cannot account for. Let us actually use those monies to provide the basic amenities to make sure that the basic infrastructure are working, the basic utilities are working. Basic utilities like water, steady water supply, steady electricity supply, where people are no longer going to be depending on buying of diesels and using their own generators, making sure that we don't create our own, we don't use, pay so much for security, personal security and corporate security. When we do all this, you see that individuals and many people are going to go into businesses and grow in their businesses instead of distributing monies to accounts. These monies will not last for 1 day or 1 week, and they will finish. And so what next? What happens next week? So we can't start what we cannot finish. So the best thing is just to use those monies to create amenities and infrastructure that will be beneficial to people, that will make a level playing field for people who want to do business. And probably now have some kinds of facilities that will go to certain sectors, maybe to create certain creative facilities that will go to manufacturing and to go to some other sectors that will actually add value to the economy. That's how to do social security, social functions in an economy like ours, so that it can actually impact the economy and impact the people also.
Interesting, because when you see the figures of across the continent, talking about poverty line reports from World Bank, it doesn't look very good at all, and Nigeria in focus. So cash transfers and all of these things, like we talked about. But let's now look at public service itself. Some would say in private practice, you get into government, you to resign, you to do things. This has to do with corporate governance, I think, here. How well are we practicing it in this part of the world? And what more can we do so that we know that anyone that is getting into government would declare and we would know which is which, so that we don't have all of this conflict of interest moving forward and the work can be done the way it ought to be?
So what really can be done is to make scapegoats out of all these whole things. When people are not accountable, when people cannot account for what is given to them, when people get into businesses with government money, you make them scapegoats. You pick them up and you make them pay for it. Others will sit up. When people don't get punished for offenses they commit, when people are free, occupying positions, even when they know they have offenses they have committed, then these things will continue to pervade everywhere. So we need to learn to punish when such things are wrong, and we need to hold people accountable for them.
Before I let you go, I'm sure you're aware there's been a lot of shakeup around the banking industry. A lot of realignments by the CBN. And even the CBN has also been trying to clear some backlogs, talking about FX now. So it's almost like a two-in-one question. What would you say about the move so far by the Mr. Laimi Cardoso-led CBN? That's one. And also, what impact do you think this can have around the banking and financial industry? Talking about confidence here, that sector is the highest player in the stock market.
Yes, the banking industry is an industry that must be run with so much discipline, with so much corporate governance, and with so much transparency. Now, we didn't see so much of it in the past, and so that's why some of these things are happening today. What the current CBN governor is doing right now is just to sanitize and clean up the entire system so that CBN can play its primary role of oversight over financial institutions. When people cannot understand why certain things are happening and why things go wrong and why you are acquiring one bank or the other and they're not transparent, we need to be transparent about it. And so it's also good that, very interesting, probably one of the things that made the IMF to say that our economy is going to grow by 3.3% is the fact that the backlog, FS backlogs are being paid by the current CBN. If that is done, the confidence that the investors had around us will come back again. People can be free again to do business and can be confident again to do business with Nigeria. So that was a very good thing. And so our credibility with the outside world and our credit rating will be high again. You know, I'm sure we have our credit rating at its lowest ebb right now. And so we need to come out of it and be rated well enough for us to access some foreign funds and for our letters of credit to be also acceptable and credible in the international market. So these are the things that we need to do to get back to where we used to be. But for the function of the CBN, it's sacrosanct. Sacrosanct in the sense that when you don't do what you're supposed to do, you get punished. And that's actually what they are doing right now. So we need to give them some time to clean and sanitize the entire place because this is actually commendable.
Interesting stuff. So that confidence we expect might just be returning very soon to the market. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sure. That is actually very, you know, Rome was not built in a day, so it will take a little time for all this cleanup to happen so that the confidence will eventually come back in the short, middle, and the long term. It has to come back.
Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu is the Managing Director, CEO of Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate this. Wish you all the best in 2024 and beyond.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure always.
All right, well, interesting conversation always about Nigeria and